Today on Locked On Rockies, no doubt about it. If the Rockies lose Antonio Senzatela for an extended period of time, trading has to be the answer.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 11th day of May in the year 2023. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every single day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot. That's what we do around here, is talk about the Colorado Rockies each and every day. And we are proud to be your first listen of the day. Thank you for tuning in to us daily and being part of our everyday crew. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today on the Locked On Rockies podcast, we are talking about the fact that the Colorado Rockies are facing a situation in which the only answer truly is to trade. And that comes with as we all wait for results for the health of Antonio Senzatela. And we talked about this on the show last night. It's not only a huge blow for the Rockies, but when we look at things, there's not a ton of depth here that you can turn to pardon me, in your farm system here when you're looking at starting pitching, when you're going through things, and when you're looking at the Rockies' top prospects as listed on MLB.com, there's not an MLB ready pitcher here within the top 20. You can maybe look at saying Jeff Criswell here, who's you could maybe bring him up a little bit more, but he was a reliever. He's still projected to be a debut this season, so you could take a risk there. You can see what you also have here from Gavin Hollowell, if these guys are healthy enough. But if you don't trade, what other option are you going to have? I mean, you have to turn to some of these young guys, and is that the right call? I mean, I'm not necessarily against it, to be totally honest. In the grand scheme of things, even with this good stretch of ball, I mean, the Rockies working their way back to being a stone's throw to 500 complicates what I think is the philosophy of the Rockies. If things were continuing on the trajectory that they were for the Rockies, this question gets would be a little bit more simple. I think the Rockies would be a little bit more willing to punt and see what they got. They did it last year. They weren't afraid to bring guys up and different guys up and try them out in certain situations. I mean, Peter Lambert is in the bullpen right now, but how quickly do you want to ramp him up and bring him into the starter role when you are really facing a situation when you need a starter that can get you innings? The Rockies are facing too many situations this season in which their starter's only going to the fifth. The Rockies really, I mean, what was nice about especially German Marquez and Antonio Senzatela is these pitchers can go into the sixth inning and keep a game close, even on their not sharpest days. Kyle Freeland can do the same as well. And so now we haven't really seen Gomber go super far. We still are seeing how far are we going to trust the young guys to go as well. If Antonio Senzatela it misses time and you're hesitant to bring people up, because it's kind of interesting that they haven't said anything, and I haven't seen too many rumors so far of what the plan is for the Rockies and if this happens. But if you don't want to go young, you got to make a trade. And so who are the Rockies willing to part with, and what are the Rockies really going to get back in a trade? That's the big question. I mean, the other option obviously is the waivers. And of course, one of the interesting ones being Chase Anderson. He's a right-hander. He got designated for assignment by the Rays after only throwing 5 innings this season, couple of strikeouts. I'm not. I mean, it's just one of those moves where he. It's like a Rays move, that's just like, huh? What did they do? What's the plan? I mean, maybe they did something like the Rockies in Jonathan Daza, where they needed to be able to make a move and they couldn't, and the DFA was allowing them to do so. But I mean, that's certainly an option for the Rockies. But wouldn't you want to kind of, if you're going to make a trade, if you're gonna pull the trigger on something like that, don't you want to make a little bit more of a splash? If you're going to make a move for an arm, it shouldn't just be for a stopgap plan. It should be for someone that you're confident in playing with and confident in confident in believing in for the long haul. I mean, there's so many, especially if you're going to get a pitcher of kind of great quality or a middle to, I don't know if you can really get a top of the rotation guy for what the Rockies really have to offer, depending on what they would offer on the minor league level, because that also factors into this trade question. How much of the Rockies, position player prospects would they be willing to move on from in the instance of a trade? And should you be open-minded to moving those prospects to land an arm that could help you out for a couple of seasons? How important is it for the Rockies to trade for a starting pitching with some control in a contract? It's probably a little bit more important than you think, especially when the question surrounding German Marquez there as the offseason is looming for him. And just the back half of the rotation and these young guys. I mean, there's certainly a million factors to go in. But as always, if the Rockies want to really improve their pitching staff immediately and do so without doing it in the draft and develop way, trade has always been their best option. When you're not going to be able to attract the biggest and the best in free agency, you're not going to be able to lure. You're going to bring pitchers in that are interested with a certain rebound and the challenge and the mindset to do that. But again, like the Rockies didn't have a chance for any of the high profile free agent pitchers this offseason. I don't know how you can change that. I mean, until Coors Field, the narrative around it really changes, the Rockies are never really going to be able to bring in a high-profile free agent. It's not to say that they can't have good pitching. Again, I've praised a lot of the pitchers in this rotation and pitchers in the past for the Rockies, but if the Rockies want to address the need of starting pitching and want to do it in a way that makes a little bit of a splash, you're gonna have to let go of some of these veterans or potentially some prospects, and I just don't know how willing the Rockies are to do that. I think the Rockies are more likely going to call up these young guys. It's more likely that the Rockies will look for the waiver wire and call up the young guys before they trade any of these guys. I unfortunately think that the only downside, I think that there is a downside to the Rockies' recent success. And we'll talk about that here in segment number 2 of the Locked On Rockies podcast. But first, I got to tell you about our friends at Gametime. Gametime is the place that is going to take care of you when you need last-second tickets. Folks, if you are out there and you're like, oh, man, I'm supposed to buy tickets, I'm supposed to do this, and you got your reputation of planning events on the line, Gametime's going to help you out. They got flash deals and last-minute tickets, and don't worry, you can even check out pictures of your seats so you can know where you're sitting, so you won't be surprised when you go into the venue. You'll know where you're sitting, and that also makes you feel a little bit better it makes me feel better, makes me feel more confident, especially when I'm doing something a little bit spontaneous and spur of the moment. That picture helps make me feel more confident in what I am going to get. They got the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection. They got all sorts of stuff to take care of you in case something happens with the event. Gametime is the place for the last minute ticket deals, so you don't even have to plan ahead if you don't want to. There's the Gametime guarantee as well. That means you're always going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. You can join the show. You can be part of the fun by subscribing to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel and being part of the live chat. When you see that we are live and recording the show, you can drop in and ask your Rockies questions live. Have you fire off your Rockies hot takes and lots more. Again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Shout outs to my everyday listeners out there. Off day for the Colorado Rockies today, so no baseball action for you tonight in terms of the Rockies. We'll look ahead to the Phillies series coming up in segment number 3. But I unfortunately, I don't want to damper things. It's a worry. It's not a bad thing, and it's not a surprise. But the Colorado Rockies' recent success does paint a familiar picture. If this team goes 500 over its recent stretch, I believe if my math is correct, they're around 3 games below 500. If this team continues to win series, this team will continue to believe in what they have. So, when you're facing situations like replacing Antonio Senzatela and Germán Marquez in the starting rotation with a trade, and you combine that with if the Rockies are able to manage okay and play good baseball through the injury, they've so far been able to navigate the Germán injury with some success, small sample size in the big picture, big scheme of the Rockies season. But I think stretches like this, and I think when the Rockies play like this, tells the front office that they were right. Enough for the Rockies front office to believe that they were right and to believe that they had the right plan, the right mindset, they've made the right adjustments, and that this team is going to keep scrappily fighting its way into the playoffs, as has been Colorado Rockies baseball tradition. So the more I think about it, I think the Rockies are going to make minimal to no moves at the trade deadline. If it reverts, if things go back to the way they were, if the Rockies go back to how this season started, that will obviously change. But the Rockies have put together a couple of series of strong baseball, and that's obviously a good thing. We like good winning Rockies baseball. It just complicates the big picture, and it complicates the actions and the idea and the mindset of the Rockies front office. And again, trade deadline and midway point in the season is only halfway, basically, give or take. I know it's not exactly halfway, but it's right around there. So there's still a large part of the season left for the Rockies even after that. And we've seen the downsides of this team. Early season, sure. Will it be different later in the season? It should be. But if it reverts back to what we've seen, and if the Rockies stand pat at the deadline, they are in even more trouble in the future. The Rockies really need to start leveraging and planning ahead instead of right now, because it's working. It's for now, but it's also overall a team that's still 6 games under 500, a team that is now missing 2 of its main starting pitchers, a team that doesn't have top pitching prospects. There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of concern here. So as great as it is, and as enjoyable as it is, and I mean, and I think what we're seeing a little bit too with the Rockies is the offense is rising to the occasion, and the defense, we talked about it on the show yesterday, is other players in other parts are picking up the Rockies in addition to the pitchers that are being called on are stepping up and into the occasion. Can this continue? It can. I mean, it certainly can. If you can go and you beat 3 good teams. I know the Pirates are now scuffling and maybe thoughts were a little high, but still a good team, still a team that blanked them. But I mean, those are 3 good series wins. And for the Rockies to win 4 of their last 5 series, like, you can't sit there and deny that. The Diamondback series was very ugly. But sometimes, I mean, especially in the grand scheme of things with baseball, the Rockies finding themselves winning series and in the middle of the race, a certain race, they could think they're in the race. Just if things keep falling their way, if things keep going, if they keep doing the little things right. I just don't know if this Rockies team still has enough to make the big push, especially down the stretch. The Rockies are winning now, but do the Rockies have the capability of winning in October or September with this roster, with all of the injuries that this team has faced, with the team as constructed right now? If it does, in fact, make its way to October? I don't think so. And that's what's tough. I mean, what's really tough about a team like the Rockies and baseball in general sometimes is, what is the point of standing pat and missing the playoffs by a couple of games and being a middle of the pack team? There's no real benefit to that. So you have to unless you truly believe that this team is capable of winning it all or making a run or making it into the postseason as constructed right now on this day, right here, because this is, I mean, I don't want to be too doom and gloom with Senza, but the warning signs, the issues are there. You've already faced massive injuries this season. Do you have enough depth to make it into the postseason and make it a successful run? I don't think so. But that doesn't take away from what the team is doing now. That doesn't take away from the success that we're having. That's not to say that you shouldn't enjoy and be happy that the Rockies are playing winning and good baseball. Those are all good signs, because you're looking at players that are doing well, and you're seeing that they are going to be in spots where the Rockies have great promise, and they're going to be they can be part of the picture moving forward. You just have to there's just tough calls that are going to have to be made for the Rockies, and I don't think they're going to make them. Ethan Klentz says, I understand why, but I'm still going to enjoy wins. Stay positive. Also, prospects don't always pan out. Look at the Royals and Reds. Rotation does need tons of help, I admit. That's the problem, though. I mean, it's not just prospects not panning out. It's okay. Don't trade for prospects, then trade for a starter. Teams trade for starters. I just don't think the Rockies are willing to do that, especially when the team plays good baseball, because they sit there and say that this is our reason. This is our moment to show you that, hey, this team that we constructed is able to beat these teams. We just beat the Brewers and the Mets. Those are 2 playoff teams. Some would argue the Pirates were, the Pirates thumped the Rockies, and they went and they came back and returned the favor. I just don't think that there's enough here in the tank to make a big run. But that doesn't mean there isn't good things that are going to happen this year and good things that are going to happen on the field. You just got to prepare for next year, because the injuries, especially to the starting rotation, I think are just a little bit too much for this Rockies team to handle throughout a full season. Right now, they're handling it. How do they handle it in July? How do they handle it in August? How do they handle it in June? There's so much baseball left, and there are so many key pieces of the Rockies that are already out for extended periods of time. They've managed in some ways. I just don't see the depth for it to be managed for a full-on successful playoff run in 2023. Okay, let's preview this series in Philly, and let's take a look at our. Let's take a look at what our Rockies are going to be up to here as we get ready for some weekend baseball with no baseball today, unfortunately. Always sad. But first, I want to tell you about the new way you are going to fall in love with fantasy baseball, and that is Sorare. So rare. It takes all the fun and the excitement of card collecting, makes it a little bit simpler, gives you easier access, and allows you to build your true fantasy team. It's a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, and it makes you the owner. Officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 teams in Major League Baseball. Sorare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with players' cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Sorare rewards. What are you competing for, you ask? Well, if you rank near at the top of the leaderboard, you can win a variety of rewards, including scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com, sorare.com, to draft your team of free player cards. Set your lineup and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, 13x AM, 13 here in the live chat. Ethan Klentz in the live chat as well. Shout outs to all you everyday listeners, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I know, is there news in Oakland? I thought they pivoted on their on the stadium or whatever. I know it's a big deal. Personally, I think it's a little, I think expansion to Vegas was inevitable. It coming at the cost of the A's and the way the A's owner has run things, managed things, and done things. I just am not a fan of whatsoever. But if it's a better baseball conditions for everyone, that'll be nice. But I don't know. It's just a bummer to me to see a team that does have some really cool history, a team that does have some really cool teams in its past, and the way it goes to that. It's just a bummer. But you know, I mean, me personally, every time a league announces expansion, Vegas has just always been kind of the duh. As long as, you can figure out how to build the stadiums and get the resources. But anyway, Rockies playing the Phils coming up here in a weekend series. So the Rockies are going to definitely look just like this Pirates series. The Rockies are going to look to redeem themselves a little bit. This is a Rockies team that played the Phillies and certainly had ample opportunities to win that series. But as we were talking about yesterday, it was playing the Phillies at a point where they were just really sloppy on defense, really getting in their own way, and just making mistakes and errors that really cost this team. It's a different Rockies team playing this Phillies team for sure right now, and it's a benefit of a home series. Hopefully now this Rockies team can make this homestand one where they are the dominant team instead of teams coming in there and turning things around at Coors Field. Now that they iron things out on the road, they have got this good solid stretch of baseball. They played that solid series against the Brewers. Let's go for it again, full throttle. And I'm really looking forward to continue to see hopefully maybe with the way Tovar's playing, maybe a little Coors Field breakout series would be great for him. But this is also a Phillies team that's playing much better. This is a Phillies team that is getting a little bit back on track, and a Phillies team that has, of course, one of the scariest guys in the biz back in action as well in Bryce Harper. So. Actually, as I'm looking a little bit more into the Phillies here, they did just sweep the Blue Jays in a quick little 2-game set there, but they were coming off of back-to-back series losses against the Red Sox and the Dodgers. Dodgers actually sweeping the Phillies and thumping them pretty good there to start off May. Phillies were able to take down the Astros there, so they are 2-2 in their last 2 series, and like I said, Bryce Harper back in action, so he's going to be a big factor to watch in this one. But it's going to be nice. What is nice, at least so far, and especially right now, how the season has started, it's going to be nice to see Chris Bryant and Bryce Harper do a little dueling this weekend. I think that's going to be pretty cool. And talk about a guy that we'd love to see have a little breakout. I think here's my big, bold hot take. Chris Bryant, 2 home runs in this series. Chris Bryant hits 2 big flies in this one. And, I don't know. I'm not going to go full series prediction. Maybe we'll save that for tomorrow's show because we're going to wrap things up here on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you for tuning in to the live chat. Thank you for being part of the show. Your subscription to Locked on Rockies helps make this show possible and helps out us a big time amount. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're available free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. I'm Paul Holden, and this has been the Locked on Rockies podcast.